Haugland.
And I'm Alex Haugland.
And this is our 1966 Iso Rivolta IR300.
We are in the middle of a tour along the Oregon coast. Come join us on this episode of Everyday to Exotic. There's over 200 cars in the Haugland collection.
And it just keeps growing.
Our goal is to try and drive them all.
Each episode, we'll talk about the car's history, showcase its design and features, and dive into its mechanicals.
Then we'll take it out on a drive through the beautiful roads of Oregon.
Finally, we'll rate our car to see where it stands in the Haugland rank.
In this episode,
Alex and Amy respond to viewer feedback. The term chrome. I will now be referring to all of those things as bright work.
Amy proves old habits die hard.
I do like the chrome. I do like the shiny, and Alex states the obvious.
This engine sounds like an American V8 because it's an American V8. All this and more on today's episode of Everyday to Exotic.
But first, let's take a look into the car's history. Iso began as a company that produced heating and refrigeration equipment before being purchased by Renzo Rivolta in 1939. At the end of World War II, Rivolta switched the company's production to motorcycles. The company next ventured into automobile manufacturing in early 1953 with the development of the Isetta, which was a two-seat motorcycle engine microcar, priced to be even less expensive than the already inexpensive Fiat Topolino.
The Isetta featured a four-wheel layout with two rear wheels mounted close together in the rear and a 236 cubic centimeter engine, providing the weather protection of a car while being cheap and economical to operate like a motorcycle. The design didn't sell well in Italy, but Rivolta decided to license it to other manufacturers abroad, including Velam in France, the Rome Isetta company in Brazil, and best known, the BMW Isetta in Germany, which effectively saved BMW from bankruptcy.
Moving on from the diminutive Isetta, Renzo Rivolta took the company in a significantly upscale direction, deciding to produce a luxury grand touring coupe named after himself, the Iso Rivolta IR300. The car had a body designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro at Bertone, fitted to a chassis developed by the former Ferrari engineer Giotto Bizzarrini. Without the funding to develop a high-performance engine to suit the car, Renzo turned to the United States to locate a source and ended up with the Chevrolet 327 cubic-inch 5.4-liter V8, as was fitted to the Corvette, backed by a Borg-Warner 4-speed transmission.
The Rivolta IR300 premiered in 1962 at the Torino Motor Show, priced carefully to fit between the cost of a Jaguar and a Ferrari. The IR300 was so named because of the initial output of the engine, which was 300 horsepower. In 1964, a 340 horsepower engine was also made available as the IR340 was released. Further options added over the course of production included a 5-speed manual transmission as well as a 3-speed automatic.
The intent of the car was to produce a high-quality, fast, but supremely comfortable grand touring car, drawing on the best features available at the time, with 4-wheel independent suspension, disc brakes, luxuriously comfortable interior, and a powerful engine in a package that was competitively priced when compared to the products of Maserati and Ferrari.
Renzo's expectation was the car would be a huge success aimed at the American market, and to that end, he invested heavily in building press dyes and equipment to scale up for mass production. The bodies were initially finished at Bertone, arriving at Iso for fitting the drivetrain. As production progressed, more work was done in-house, potentially as a result of quality concerns with how Bertone was finishing the cars, mostly due to water ingress, which was hurting sales in the United States.
In all, only 797 cars were made before slow sales led to its retirement as a model in 1970. Iso did go on to make a range of other cars powered by GM engines and then later Ford power plants. But due to increased cost, economic issues, gas crisis, and other events, the company ceased to produce cars at the end of 1974.
Our car is a 1966 IR300 model, which has been restored progressively over the last couple of decades by the previous two owners. It has a manual 4-speed transmission as well as a trunk-mounted air conditioning system. This was the 200th car added to the collection and was a car that I had been specifically looking for a good example of for a few years before finding this one. So the shape of the Iso Rivolta really is the classic long-distance driving coupe. that was really becoming popular in the 1960s. You have your classic sort of three-box section, a nice long hood, a large greenhouse with a high roof, very comfortable, lots of space for front and rear passengers, going off into a nice, good-sized trunk to make sure that we had enough space for the luggage for everyone in the car to be able to have a nice weekend-long trip and be able to bring what they need to bring.
Something to remember about this car is Renzo Rivolta was not designing a Ferrari. He wasn't designing a supercar. He wasn't designing even a sports car. He was designing a good, capable, sturdy, road-going car that also looked really cool.
The emphasis was comfort, far more than just like outright performance. The idea of this is that this car should have been very easy to drive, very comfortable to be in, and get you from A to B in the utmost luxury. And that's really what he's aiming for. It's a massive jump forward from, frankly, the little Isetta that they were producing beforehand.
In the car market at the time, they were looking to compete not so much with Ferrari or Lamborghini, but more with Mercedes. Very high-end, but very usable cars.
So I think really the brilliance for Renzo Rivolta with this car was more in finding the right talent to make this car come together in a lot of ways. He took the opportunity to buy an American engine that was already proven, so he knew that he would have a running, driving car. At the same time, he basically had Bertone and Giorgetto Giugiaro design a very nice body, and then really well-designed suspension, good brakes. He took all of the skills of what the Italians were producing to make really excellent cars and combined them together into making this his ideal car that could be used every day. For Bertone designing this car, and for Giorgetto Giugiaro, it has a lot of sort of unusual lines. There are some things that are very unique to this. I actually find it a little bit busy. It doesn't quite work as well as a lot of other Italian designs. We've got this line here that kind of tapers in the top of the vent and then fades out. But then we have this line that picks up at the bottom of the vent and carries back all the way to the back. It feels like it probably should have had kind of a single line defining a lot of that as opposed to sort of the two different levels to me. At the same point, it really does work overall in the shape of the car. We have very fine lines here at the top of the roof. We've got the little hood scoop in the top of the engine and things that add some detail to it. But there are kind of too many different levels going on for me, at least stylistically.
From here, I'm going to talk about some of the shiny bits. Now, we've gotten some comments about the term chrome, which I have admittedly been using indiscriminately to describe all the shiny bits. I have been informed that many of them are not chrome, some of them are stainless steel, some of them are aluminum. So, in the interest of accuracy and precision, I will now be referring to all of those things as bright work.
Or shiny bits.
Or shiny bits. So, with that out of the way, there is a little on this car. It's not overwhelming, it's an accent. It's a very nice accent, and I like the tasteful way that it's done. You have the window frames, the door handle, the mirror, and then you have the cool strip at the bottom, which may or may not protect you from door dings.
Probably not. It's a little bit low.
It is a bit low. I do like that the chrome. I do like the shiny framing of the side marker, and of course, you have the Bertone design mark. That's so you know who designed it.
So to kind of continue the discussion, this chrome, or this shiny bit, is actually stainless steel. That's actually chrome. That is also probably aluminum. That is chrome. That is chrome. It's just kind of all over the place. And in general, for the majority of people, unless you really get technical, it's all shiny bits. The interesting thing to me is the choice of logos for Iso. They decided on a horseshoe. And you see it on the badge on the front with the Milano Iso name and a horseshoe underneath. Our front grille emblem here is a horseshoe as well. It's actually kind of an interesting logo, but not one that I typically would think of as far as cars, and it's a little bit difficult to discern what this is unless you actually know.
I tend to anthropomorphize everything, but especially cars. It's very easy to do. You've got your headlights, which look like eyes, and then the grille, which often looks like a mouth.
Or a nose at the front, or whatever.
You know, all those things. The thing about this car is it feels very aggressive to me. And part of that is the angry eyebrows over the headlights. From up here, it doesn't look super angry. But if you get down here, where you would be if you were another car, assuming the other car, the face is in the same place, it gets really angry looking. I think it's cool and neat, but it is a very different expression from many of our other cars.
So as we come down the side of the car, we have brawny wire wheels with 3-eared knockoffs. This is a sign that this is a luxurious Italian car. Pretty much all cool Italian cars got brawny wire wheels. Iso Rivolta, no exception.
So something else you'll notice is the proliferation of vents. There are a lot of vents on this car. There's, of course, one in the hood. That's fairly usual. There's this one on the side, again, relatively usual. Then there's this one here.
Not completely unheard of.
No. And then there's this one down here, which we looked, and it vents air from inside the wheel well to the outside. We're not sure why that's useful, but it might be. At least it's not purely decorative. It actually does vent. So
now what's venting? I don't know. If you have an idea, let us know. I can't really think of a real logical reason for it, at least with the way that it's laid out. But it's obviously intentionally there, and there is an opening in the wheel arch that goes to that vent. As usual on Italian cars, we have a locking gas flap that fits nicely to the body in order to basically keep people from stealing your gas.
One of the things that I love the most about this car is the color. It's this gorgeous sort of ice blue that somehow also manages to set off the silver of the bright work without having it blend into the kind of silvery tone of the car. I think that's a very nice, fine touch.
And coming around the back side, we have our taillights, which are basically set into the body of the car. So they're a little bit Frenched in for the style with a nice little shiny metal trim.
It makes the back very smooth, which I like. Nothing really other than the bumper is sticking out.
And then, of course, we have our Iso Rivolta badge on the trunk in sort of that classic Italian chrome-plated lettering. If we open up the trunk, it opens very easily on springs, so it takes very little effort to lift, holds itself up beautifully, wants to basically stay wherever you put it. And the trunk itself is actually pretty good size. It is really the full width of the car, but it's not outstandingly deep. And the main reason for that is its spare tire. The other reason for that is possibly visible by these 2 black hoses here, right above that little switch there. That switch, by the way, is, I believe, for a trunk light, which doesn't work. But part of the reason that the trunk doesn't have as much space is because behind this panel is an air conditioning unit that fills up basically the entire area behind the seats. This car does have essentially factory-style air conditioning. It is mounted in the trunk only, and it has vents that basically come up behind the rear window and blow forward, chilling the back of your neck. Doesn't really do a huge amount for the people in the front seat, but if you're in the back seat, you get really cold really quick.
So, of course, we have to talk about our usual volume measurement, which is wine cases. In this case, pretty much no. Unless you're laying them on their side, then you could maybe get 2, 3, somewhere in there. But then you wouldn't have any room for your luggage.
It's kind of a small amount for an Italian car.
It is.
We do have our jack tucked in back here in a little bracket to keep it in place. It does have an antenna that is a power radio antenna, but very much of the era.
I love that you can see the motor
Yep.
in the trunk.
And that would have been probably an aftermarket or dealer installed thing. That's not necessarily something that would have been on the car by default out of the factory. Otherwise, that kind of covers the trunk. So we can move on to the mechanicals and then Amy into the interior. So to look at the mechanicals, I will have Amy open up the hood. She pulls the lever inside and it releases, and I just lift it up and it holds itself in place. This is pretty much a typical American V8. This is a Chevrolet 327. This car is an IR300, so it originally would have had 300 horsepower. The IR350 would have had 350 horsepower. Really, at this point, this engine's been rebuilt, it's been upgraded, it's been modified. It probably is pretty insignificant, the difference between the two. Some of these cars actually even had Corvette valve covers in chrome fitted to them. And I think those are mostly the 350 horsepower variant, but there really isn't much difference beyond that. There are a few things you'll see here. You've got your typical air cleaner. A lot of these are just the standard American parts. This has an upgraded manifold. It has an upgraded carburetor. It has a few things that have been done when they've rebuilt the engine. But otherwise, we have a York air conditioning compressor, the giant inefficient block that was correct for cars of this era. We have a more modern alternator fitted to the other side, so it does have an alternator, and it probably originally would have had an alternator by 1966. The brake system is all based off of Girling parts and is a four-wheel disc brake system, so front and rear wheels have disc brake calipers. So very, very good brakes actually for the time. Much better than typically what you found on American cars, many of which were still running drums, front and rear. We have a little bit of Britishism in here too. This is a Lucas washer bottle for your windshield washer, probably one of the least significant parts to borrow from Lucas. All of the fuses and things are in covers here, and then a few extras tucked down here. Lots of fuses on the car, also very much obviously not from Lucas, who would have probably only had 2 to 6 at most for the entire car. Viscous coupling clutch on the radiator, so mechanical fan. Nothing in here is really out of the ordinary of what you would typically see on most American cars, other than maybe the brake system and the odd Lucas bit here or there. The frame of the hood itself, you can see, is just a tube frame, fairly simple. The trunk lid is almost identical. We have a little bit of padding on here. You see this on a lot of Italian cars. A lot of this is to kind of keep the heat down and keep the noise of the engine down. That said, this engine sounds like an American V8 because it's an American V8. Power goes to the rear wheels through a 4-speed manual gearbox. There was an automatic gearbox as an option on this. That would have been a 3-speed. And there was also a 5-speed available on some of the cars as well. So once we get past the transmission, we are now out of American land into the rear suspension, which is a fully independent Dedion rear suspension with a Watts link, and it has inboard disc brakes. So it reduces your unsprung weight and gives you a little bit better performance as far as what it otherwise could have. So overall, the chassis design on this is very well thought out, very well laid out to make it a very comfortable car going over all kinds of road conditions in all kinds of environments. So I think that covers most of the mechanicals. There's not really a lot that's unusual or different in this car other than the choice of engine. And that's a big part of what sets this car apart. It is very Italian in every other way, except for that American V8. And now we'll move on to Amy in the very, very comfortable interior.
So welcome to the interior. This is a luxurious car, and all the materials in here are also luxurious. This is trimmed in leather, wool, and wood. I love that wood burl dashboard. So we'll start there. The gauges are fairly standard. It's in kilometers per hour because it's a European car. We have these interesting little vents on both sides that Alex referred to as eyeball vents, which I find hilarious. Pretty much everything is labeled. It's labeled in Italian. These are your luci esterne, so external lights, instrument lights, internal lights. This is your heater vent. This is your rear vent. And this is your antinebbia, so anti-fog. The one thing that is labeled in English in here is the wipers. And that's because that's a Lucas switch. I find that highly amusing as well. This is the highly decorative cigarette lighter. However, interestingly enough, up here, there is no ashtray. There used to be one. There's a little outline here that shows where it was, but it is not here anymore. This is not an ashtray. This is a map light, which is pretty cool. There. These are my heater controls. Air conditioning control is right in here. So you can control how cold your passenger's necks get. The radio is era correct. I don't know if it's the original radio, but this car did originally come with a radio. You've got very nice speakers down there and also one over here. The leather on the dashboard is beautifully shaped and stitched to just the shape of all the bits of the dashboard, including over here where the key is on the correct side, or should I say the side that I am more used to the key being on, which further emphasizes that this is not a race car. This is a family car. The cutout is interesting because it gives my hand room to actually turn the key. And that's just very thoughtfully done for the comfort of the driver. One thing that is very unusual about this car, including among other Iso Rivoltas, is the armrest. Both the passenger and the driver get armrests. This is really kind of interesting and a fun extra feature because that's really unnecessary and it takes a lot of fitting to get that to work. So I thought that was pretty cool. Extra luxuries. The steering wheel is cool. It's, fairly standard for this era. It does say Iso Rivolta in the middle, and what's cool about that is it's sort of resin and the horseshoe is a couple layers back from the shiny logo. So, more attention to details. This is not the horn. That's the horn. It's an air horn. It should be two-tone, but we're missing a little bit in the engine. So that'll have to be replaced at some point. The doors on the Iso Rivolta have a couple of interesting features. One of those is the door catch. So you lift up to open the door. You push down to lock the door. Kind of interesting. Now, if your door pocket, it's cool looking. It's not quite as cool as a Pininfarina door pocket, but that's okay. Power windows. Fast power windows. A little bit loud. So this dial here opens and closes your quarter light windows. I think that's about it for the front. So now let's turn and look at the back seat. These seats are really easy to flip forward, so I can do that from over here. So in the back seat, you have armrests, comfortable bolsters, and also one of the big wide pull-down armrests so that you can establish a no man's land for your children. Also back here are ashtrays on both sides so that I guess your children can smoke even if the driver and the passenger cannot. So one other thing I do want to talk about before we leave the interior is that we have 4 vents back here. We have 2 that are sticking up. Those are the air conditioning vents. And then we have 2 smaller round ones in the back, and those are heat vents. But this car has a lot of vents. You may notice that the seats are kind of an interesting shape. They have this big cutout there, which is a little asymmetrical because of the armrests that I mentioned earlier. This is so the people in the back seat have a place to put their knees. Because if this cutout wasn't here, that would be pretty tight. And with that, I think we're done with the interior. Time to go for a drive.
So we're off in the Iso and heading out of Florence, Oregon, down the coast towards California. We're in the middle of a tour here, actually. We're involved with a tour we're planning and working on with Vintage Underground, but at the moment we're doing a test run for this tour. And the Iso is kind of a great car to do this in. It's comfortable, it handles a range of environments, it has air conditioning if we need it. Right now on the coast we don't. So it does well in the cold, it does well in the hot. It's a really nice choice, I think, for this kind of trip. We started out basically coming in from Bend, Oregon to the coast, and now we're heading down the coast in this car into Northern California, where we'll play around the border a little bit, in and out of Oregon and California, before we head back up the east side of the Cascade Mountains and back over to Bend. So the entire trip is a full loop. It's about 650 miles. We're doing it actually in a couple cars. So our camera car for this happens to be another car for the collection. And we're going to swap out partway through, and this will be the camera car later on. But at the moment, we're in the Iso. And this is a fairly different driving experience from a lot of our other Italian GT cars. A lot of it has to do with that Corvette engine in this. The 327 Chevrolet motor that's in this is really very American in feel. It doesn't sound anything like our V12 Ferrari or our V12 Lamborghini Spada or anything like that. It doesn't even sound like our V8s that we have in Maseratis. It's a very American sounding engine, very American sounding transmission. I mean, it's got that grumble that really speaks V8, but at the same time, it doesn't feel quite as civilized, if I were to put anything to it. I don't know, that may be my American bias here, kind of thinking about sort of American muscle cars and things like that as being inexpensive but high performance, high end, as far as torque and everything like that. But the big advantage of this, though, I think, over American muscle cars is this car has Italian suspension and Italian disc brakes. Well, British disc brakes, technically, but it has disc brakes in the 1960s. And most American cars in the 1960s with these 327s were still on drums. So it really has a lot of things that the American cars that were using this drivetrain didn't have as far as performance and handling. This car has some mileage on it. The engine's been rebuilt. The engine's actually a pretty fresh rebuild. The transmission's in good shape. I don't have any issues shifting into gears or anything. But I can hear the valves, I can hear the rockers going and things like that. Again, it's an American V8. It's got a cam in the center of the valley that's operating all of the intake and exhaust valves. It's just not the same setup as the overhead cam engines that you were finding on European cars. But it works perfectly well. It's a good, reliable engine. One of the best advantages on a tour like this is if I need a part, if something goes out on the distributor or whatever, if I needed a set of points, I could go to any auto parts store and say, hi, I need points for a Chevy 327. And they'd go, sure, here you go.
It's not like a specialist Italian part for a Alfa Romeo. A lot of places don't have parts for classic Alfa Romeos, but they have parts for classic American cars.
That's part of what makes this a good long-distance touring car, though, is that if something really goes wrong, I can probably fix it in small-town America, even in the Midwest, where foreign cars tend not to be that common. It's an exotic-looking car, but the drivetrain, for the most part, isn't very exotic.
I love how international this car is. I love that the designers were like, okay, we want a really powerful engine. We're going to do an American engine. We want a really stylish body. We're going to get Bertone. We want a really nice interior. Again, we're going to talk to Bertone. And then Bertone goes, okay, I want cool switches. I'm going to do British switches. There are a lot of luxurious touches to what could be a daily family car.
It is a very Bertone interior, to be honest. There's some features in here that I look at and I'm like, hey, that's just like Amy's Alfa Giulia.
I like that I'm also starting to recognize those design similarities that help you recognize, oh, this is a Bertone, or this is a Pininfarina, or this is a fill in the blank.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. It's like learning an artist.
Yes. It's like you can look at a painting by Van Gogh, and even from a wide distance, you can go, that's a Van Gogh painting, even if you've never seen it before, if you know his style, because it is so distinctive. And you start picking up those elements in a lot of car design as well, with certain designers who have certain aesthetics, or certain coach builders who have certain styles that they tend to lean towards. I mean, the styling on this car is very Bertone, and Giorgetto Giugiaro was the designer here. And so he absolutely put sort of some of his typical touches into it and things. The interior is very nice. It feels like I'm in a fairly open space. The window pillars and all that are fairly narrow. Yeah, it's probably bad if I rolled the car over, but my visibility is actually really good in this. If I were to compare it to kind of anything, this is a lot like a Jaguar XJ6, but it predates the Jaguar XJ6. But stylistically, size-wise, the three-box design and everything is proportionally very similar to what William Lyons did with the Jaguar XJ6. And it's just a really nicely balanced car. It doesn't quite have the Italian flair in the same sense as like a lot of Pininfarina's designs for Ferrari. It doesn't feel to Ferrari level of quality. You're driving the car, looking at the car, things like that. But it also wasn't Ferrari pricing. And I think that they found a nice niche for this car to fit in, to still be a good, nice, performing, comfortable car, but that was within a price range that gave it its own sort of unique place in the market. And one of the things that let them do that was not having to design their engine, not having to design their own gearbox, not having to basically start completely from scratch. Come up with a good suspension, come up with a good chassis design, and then design a car around that. And for Rivolta, that really is what made this work. So, I mean, this is a two-door executive car. It seats 4 people. We have put adults in the back of this and driven around with it. I mean, it's not a lot of room behind it, partly because the seats don't go forward enough, but that's because we've got a wide transmission tunnel here and the seat hits it. So, really, this is a good-sized car for me, not a good-sized car for Amy.
The seat hitting the transmission tunnel is why you will not see me driving this car.
Yeah.
Because we just cannot physically move the seat far enough forward for me to drive this car safely.
And the clutch on this has a pretty long throw, so even for me, it's like the seat's in about the right position for me, but it's technically all the way forward. You basically have to be about my height or close to really be able to enjoy driving this car.
However,
and Amy is too short.
I fit very tidily in the back seat.
Yes.
Taller people can't do that, though.
Yeah. So this car steers very, very easily. The steering is about as light as can be. The one downside is it's too many turns lock to lock. So it's very tricky to do things like parallel park because you're spinning the wheels so much to straighten out the car and turn the car and things like that in order to basically get into spaces and things. But it's doable, you just have to get used to it. So there are no airbags in this car, nothing's gonna go off and like break your arm or anything. It's just a matter of spin it as quick as you can, but it takes no effort to turn this car. It's, if anything, over boosted.
It is a very comfortable ride as a passenger. The suspension is really nice in this car.
Yeah, it's actually pretty soft. Maybe a little bit softer than I typically would like, but it does handle still fairly well on curves, windy roads. I mean, it's a good, really kind of daily drivable car. The V8's a little bit thirsty because it's a V8. It's just the nature of the engines and sort of cars of the time.
But it has a big gas tank.
It's got a good-sized gas tank, so it has great range. And again, we have AC. It's rear-mounted, so it basically chills the back of your neck. Coming out to the coast yesterday, we were driving in the sun for the most part. And the downside of that is we were driving west, and in the afternoon, the sun is blasting through the windscreen, and the AC is cooling the back of our neck, while the rest of us is basically getting baked from the front. And the seat's blocking most of the cooling. But it kept the interior of the car vaguely comfortable.
Yes.
But we could roll down windows too, and that gets more airflow and worked out pretty well as long as we're moving at speed. The AC is especially nice, honestly, if you're in town and having to stop and have stop-and-go traffic. That's when it really is nicer than just having the windows down. And it is AC from 1966, so it's trunk-mounted. There's only so much it can do, especially since it's on modern refrigerants.
Which is not what it was built for.
Yes, which aren't as efficient, but are better for the environment.
Yes.
In theory.
In theory.
We have a passing lane coming up, so we'll actually get to use this car, hopefully. Okay, here comes our passing lane.
Roll's gonna try and get ahead of this log truck.
Yep. Try to get some open road.
Yes.
There we go.
Woohoo! Love that engine sound.
Now I get to drive this car a little bit more like it's meant to be driven. It's fine climbing the hill here. It's fine going at speed. It's just running just nice and beautifully. It's a bit overcast today, unfortunately. Yesterday was far sunnier inland, at least. When you got right next to the coast, the fog came in, but inland at all, any distance, I mean a few hundred yards inland, and suddenly the fog went away. It's kind of eerie, but the Oregon coast is like that. You can't count on it being warm, you can't count on it being sunny, but when it is, it's absolutely glorious.
Yes, but it's kind of rare, even in July. But that's why a lot of people in the hottest part of summer in Oregon will go to the coast, because it's usually 10 to 15 degrees cooler, at least.
Yep.
Oh, sun's coming out.
Yeah, now we're starting to get some sun.
It is kind of a fun adventure to just drive through some of these little coastal towns. They do have a lot of unique features. You'll see things that you won't see in any other place.
Absolutely. So because of the tourist economy, this is a good area for artists. A lot of artists live on the coast. It's not that expensive to live here compared to other places in the state. You have a customer base for things like artwork and such. So you have a lot of wood carvers, you have a lot of painters, you have a lot of various different types of artists.
Ceramics.
That make their living along here as well. Ceramics, glass blowing.
There are a few good yarn shops.
Of course, Amy's most important things.
Yes.
So anything else about the car that we need to talk about?
One nice thing about the seat only going forward so far is I have a ton of legroom up here, which is great as a navigator as well as a knitter, because I have room to put all my stuff and I can reach it. It's a very friendly car. I wish I could drive it.
Yes.
It'd be lovely if my legs were about 3 inches longer. But, short people problems.
Yep.
But I also enjoy on these tours being the navigator, making sure we're going in the right direction and all those things. I like having a job.
Amy's role is usually knit and navigate.
Knit and navigate. It's my job.
And she's good at it.
Thank you.
Both. Knitting and navigating.
Knitting and navigating.
And when we switch cars, you will be driving on this tour.
Yes.
So it's not that she's not going to get a chance to drive anything.
Oh, no,
she just physically can't drive this.
Yes. And when we do our other car, that'll be fun, because that will be the first time I have ever driven on a tour. Because normally I'm the navigator.
Yep.
I like that position because Alex is so much more experienced with driving all the different cars. It's easier for him to drive those cars on routes that we haven't necessarily been on before, things like that. I prefer to drive in familiar territory. However, this will be fun because I feel confident enough after 30-something cars in our collection that I'm not worried about driving that car.
Yep.
This tour has been really fun also because we have some fun cars on it, and so every time we go through a town or stop to get gas or whatever, it's an impromptu car show. We have people at hotels. They like to talk to us, and we've handed out some cards for the channel.
Yeah.
People are excited.
And we're happy to show them.
Oh,
we're happy
yeah.
to be out there with it.
It's fun. That's part of the joy of doing tours.
It's also why we're doing this channel, is to basically share this collection.
Yes.
And sharing this collection happens at gas stations. It happens on the road. It happens as people yell and point at the car as we go by. As people say, what the hell is that?
Mm-hmm.
So
I love watching how people's memories that are sparked by these cars make them light up. These cars make people happy. They make people's day. And that is part of the joy of our channel and the comments you guys leave. We've gotten so many good stories and so many good memories from all of you. And also the people that we meet every day when we're out in our cars, whether we're going to lunch or whether we're on a tour. It just makes me feel happy.
So we are back from our test run of our tour and back from the coast in our 1966 Iso Rivolta IR300, and it's time for the Haugland Score. Here's how it works.
Alex and I have individually rated the car in 5 categories, each with a rank of 0 to 10. Then we add our scores together to give us the final Haugland score.
After we combine our scores, the results go up on the board.
So for performance, I gave it an 8. I felt like it handles well, it brakes well. It is a lovely car in the hands of a spirited driver.
And I gave it a 7.5. The engine's great. The power's good from that end of things. It brakes well, the suspension's great. Where this car suffers is the steering. The steering is far too many turns lock to lock. It's really light. That's a nice positive thing. But you have to spin that wheel so many times to go from lock to lock. That really is the one thing I don't like about this car. So for styling, I gave it a 6.5. I do like the overall class of car that it is. Where I think it falls down is sort of as I talked about earlier, it's a little bit busy. There are a few weirdnesses in the style that, I don't know, they aren't perfect. So it's not bad, but it isn't as innovatively brilliant as other Italian designers have done.
And that's funny to me because I gave it a 9. But I think it's gorgeously unique. Gorgeous, for instance, in the way that the Citroën DS is not. As much as I like the Citroën DS, this is much more stylish, I feel. So drivability score makes me sad on this one because I had to give it a 0. Because I can not only not drive it every day, I can't drive it at all. And it's not the car's fault. I have short legs.
It's a design issue, honestly. And I gave it an 8. In a lot of ways, this is a car I could drive pretty regularly. It has an advantage in the fact that it has an American V8. And as an American, it means I can go to just about any auto parts store and buy parts for this engine. Where I really run into issues is, again, there are other parts of this car that would be hard to replace or hard to take care of. And again, that steering just kind of throws me. So for significance, I gave this car a 6. And in the bigger picture of things, this isn't a very significant Italian car compared to Italian cars in general. It just didn't really grab people the way that other cars did out of Italy and other places at the time. This was a big move for Iso coming out with a real car, but at the same time, it wasn't really a car that redefined much in the way of cars in general.
And that's very amusing to me because I gave it a 7 for almost exactly the same reasons. I felt like, again, this was a significant leap forward for Iso. They went from what was essentially a refrigerator on wheels to this. So for delight, I gave it a 7. I enjoy riding in it. I enjoy looking at it. I think it is a lovely, lovely car. However, I cannot drive it, so I cannot enjoy that part of it. And other people who meet us and see it like it, but a lot of people don't know what it is. However, the people who do know what an Iso Rivolta is love it and are so happy to see it out on the road.
And I gave it a 5.25. Partly because we need more .25s if we want to balance out in the world. And it is better than average, but not by much. And a lot of it is that people don't know what this car is. They know that it's something different, but it's not one that I think tends to grab people the same way as some of the other cars that we have that are rather different do. That gives us a final score of 64.25 for our 1966 Iso Rivolta IR300. That puts it just below our Sunbeam Tiger and just above our Volvo 122S. So that's kind of interesting because the Sunbeam Tiger is sort of the same formula, but more of a sports car with an American V8, in that case from Ford, in a European body, in that case British. While this is basically a similar idea in Italian. The Tiger's more of a sports car, this is more of a touring car.
I'm actually kind of surprised, though, that it beat out the Volvo, considering that I love the Volvo and I can drive it.
But at the same time, you really like the styling of this.
I do.
And this is a pretty drivable car as well.
Well, for you.
Yes. I mean, at the end of everything, this was a great car for us to take on this test run for a tour that we're looking at. We put over 1,000 miles on this car, and it did perform flawlessly for that. There is really a lot to say for it. It is still a good car, even if it doesn't rank as highly. In a lot of ways, it's a little bit more of an average car in use and in this collection.
It was also a very, very good camera car.
It worked beautifully as we used it to film one of the other cars that you'll be seeing later on in this season.
I think that about wraps it up. Thanks everybody for watching, for sticking with us. This is the first episode of season 4. Wow. We would not have gotten this far without all of your comments, your subscriptions, your likes. We really, really appreciate you watching.
There's a lot of opportunity here to disagree with us or share any information you may have that we may have missed. We aren't perfect. We try and do the best we can on these. Sometimes our sources are wrong. Sometimes we misremember things. But feel free to call us out. Feel free to share anything that we may have missed. That said, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye. Okay.
Well, and again,
But please don't comment. Please don't call us out on it.
please disagree with us or give us more information.